Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast brought to you by marketingops.com, powered by other Mopros out there. I'm your host, Michael Hartmann, flying a bit solo. This is the first episode we're recording after Mopspalooza 2025. So I'm sure Mike and Naomi are recovering from that, but I'm powering on. So I am joined today by Penny Hill. She's the founder and principal consultant at Three Threads Consulting. Penny has built her career at the intersection of marketing, operations, and strategy, helping teams simplify complexity, bridge gaps between departments, and make data meaningful. Today, she and I are going to be talking about one of the most common sources of friction in go-to-market teams, attribution and alignment. Why do so many teams fight over credit? What does marketing contribution actually mean? And how can simplifying our metrics and our conversations lead to better results? So, Penny, welcome to the show again.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a little bit odd because I think we scheduled this before you were on another episode that we already recorded because we
We
did
did.
the one with Leslie and all the others. So this is fun.
Yeah,
Like, can you do it twice?
yeah, it is.
Yeah. Anyway, well, good to have you again. All right, I know you and I have talked about this, but and I'll tell you my version of this if you want, but you said that both marketing and executives across businesses have a tendency to overcomplicate things, especially in the marketing world, I think. So
hmm
like for me, I often find myself telling marketers like you're caring about stuff that only marketers care about, which is maybe a slight variance, but like what does that look like to you in practice and why do you think it happens so much?
Yeah, yeah. I think we tend to overcomplicate a lot of things, and we really see it when we're talking reporting and attribution models. And there's a few ways that I see this. One way is, we end up having different attribution models for different channels, right? Or segments. We're hyper focusing on all the differences. So now we have all of these models. Or we have too many, maybe it's all the same channel, we don't have it differences per channel, but we have too many attribution models. We're looking at every single cut of this. We've got it feeding our data. Now everything's just muddied because we're looking at too much. And you could also have it where we don't have one at all, or maybe we have one, but no one's using it because we just can't come to an agreement on what it should be. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of times this happens because we get really, really stuck in exceptions. So we're really focused on the details. We're digging into the weeds of everything, and we want it to be perfect. And it's just not going to be. Like, perfection should not be our goal, really, with anything, but certainly not in enterprise B2B.
Yeah, I tell people perfection is first off, it's an impossible thing, right? I worked with a CMO who's like, what does beautiful look like? And I was like, I hate that question. Like I understand like what's the best work we can do, but
Yeah.
like it's just so hard to get to. And like
Yeah.
I mean I look at the world as trade-offs, which is a
hmm
very different thing than like what's right, what's wrong. So I think there's very few things that are like that. So um
Yeah.
yeah, I mean what do you think is the big driver though? Like I do think tends to be I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the same case in other functional areas, but it feels like marketing is particularly susceptible to this like overcomplication of stuff. Do you think it's unique to that, or do you think it's something that's common across
Yeah.
other business functions?
I mean, I guess most of my career I've been in marketing. But being in ops, you touch a lot of things, and I feel like, I see complication in customer service. You see complication in sales. I think we all tend to do it. I really do. I don't know if it's just marketing. I think an example is ICP. I see that a lot, and that's marketing and sales. And you might have the customer success team. You've got lots of orgs in there. Giving opinions on ICP, and we'll end up making it so granular you can't operationalize it. We just overcomplicate it, looking for perfection. Sometimes it's also because you have too many cooks in the kitchen. I think
Oh
that
yeah,
that can drive a lot of it too. When you've got everyone gets to have an opinion on it, or everyone gets to kind of drive the decision. I guess everyone can have an opinion, but at the end of the day, you have to have, a few key people that will drive what happens. Um, and you've got to at some point stop showing it to people, stop getting input,
right.
or you'll
I mean,
just keep.
I
keep
know
changing.
one of the things I run into is where people want to like try to solve for every particular scenario that might possibly occur,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I equate it the people who aren't into sports might not get it, but like if you look at the rule book for the NFL, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because they try to kind of have rules for all kinds of different scenarios that are unique. Whereas, and I'm less familiar with FIFA and the world of actual like football for the rest of the world, but like
Hmm.
that rule book is pretty simple and leaves a lot to interpretation in the moment, which I tend
Yeah.
to gravitate towards that. And I think a lot of people, maybe it's an American thing, right, where you want to solve for every scenario. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I do. I see that in the attribution models for sure. People trying to do that.
Uh,
Like we get in trouble.
Lead
And
scoring
I always, early. Huh? Yeah.
and
Oh,
lead
yes, lead
scoring.
scoring.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And it's funny, early in my career, like actually not even my career. This was when I was in high school. I made maps and I did this for a government contractor. And it's funny because they always said, like, and we made maps by hand and everything, had to be done pretty well. But they always said good enough for government work. That was something I always heard. Good enough for government work. And it was just this like it's like 80% good.
Yeah.
It's we're not looking for perfection with this because we'll be here all day. And that's something that stayed with me my whole life. I think that a lot. Like, well, this is good enough for government work. We're at the 80%. This is good,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, that's to me, there's another analogy of like strategy, right? I think
Hmm.
people tend to overcomplicate strategy. And a book that I read
Yeah.
years ago, gosh, I don't even know how old it is now. It's got to be in the 20 years old, is called Execution. It's kind of a scary, the discipline of getting things done. And it kind of like, it was the one for me where I was like, because I was in strategy and consulting work at the time. And it really changed the way I thought about it. And like strategy is important, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot if you can't actually execute on it and
Yeah.
hold yourselves and others accountable for the results. And so it was a big, for me, it
That's
was a
right.
big mind shift to go into that model of like execution is at least as important, maybe more important than strategy.
Yeah. That's
So,
right. Yeah.
so one of the things we talked, I mentioned up front, but it was attribution. And I know that probably you and I both have had a lot of conversations about attribution. I think with your consulting work now, you probably had more recently too, but like,
Hmm.
in fact, I was just talking to somebody else about a potential being a guest, and it was like attribution was maybe one of the topics, and like I was like, it continues to be a topic that is of interest and a challenge for a lot of people. Why do you
Yeah.
think it continues to be such a pain point?
I think, and it really is for everyone. Everyone I've talked to, I think every company, and there's been quite a few since I went out on my own. Attribution has been some source of pain for them. Either they needed to set it up, or it was there, but it's not working quite like they want it to. And I think it's because we just tie so much to it, especially as marketers. So many companies, your marketing goals are based off source pipeline, which isn't something I necessarily agree with. But even if you don't have source pipeline, you got to show what revenue you're generating, right? We got to
Yeah,
prove there's value in the marketing we're doing. And so you've got to, where are we attributing that revenue? I just think and we rightly so tie so much to revenue and marketing, right? That we tie so much to these models that we then tend to overcomplicate them because we want to
yeah,
make sure we get credit where we're putting our time.
yeah. Well, it's funny because I tell people all the time I have this sort of a love-hate relationship with attribution modeling. But like my point is like it doesn't like even the simplest attribution models are complicated math if you're not kind of a
Hmm.
math wonk. And
Yeah.
so as soon as someone sees something in the model that they don't agree with, right, it undermines the overall
Yes.
message rather than
Yeah.
supporting it. So I have
Yeah.
like I've tended to shy away from it a little bit. I haven't totally thrown it out
Yeah.
because I think there's value in it still. Um, and maybe we can get to this a little bit later though too, because like I think there's also like who you sharing it with matters. But
Hmm.
you also mentioned contribution, right? I think you and I actually went back and forth on this when we were talking about this at one point. Like
Yeah.
because of my kind of change in mindset about attribution, I have probably moved more towards, I think I like the idea of a contribution based model, right? Where you have some sort of, there's some assumptions here, right? There's some agreement about how we're measuring, who sourced the
Hmm.
pipeline of revenue upfront, so we're not spending time and reviews about that, um, and agreeing that there's probably going to be some where it's right and some where it's wrong, and so fine, we're all working towards the same big number. But like,
Yeah.
I think you like, where do you lean on that? Do you lean more towards like, I think attribution reporting is a little better, or contribution based stuff, or like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing, I think I personally feel we should only be looking at what does marketing influence. So more of that, what part of revenue is marketing touching. I don't like marketing source, those marketing contribution models. And I mean, I've done them, I do them like most companies do them. But I just think it causes a lot of infighting between sales and marketing. And at the
Mm,
end of the day, we need to be on the same team as them. And that's my goal. Usually my goal is to align with sales. Our goal in marketing is to help sales, right? We are there to kind of help move that pipeline down the funnel and make it bigger, right? Make it close faster. Like that's the kind of stuff we're doing in the enterprise B2B space. It doesn't necessarily matter who sources it. I don't think that you don't have a person that raises their hand on a demo form and then just walks through and is the influencer or decision maker on the closed one opportunity
well,
anymore. That's
yeah,
just not the buying.
yeah,
That's not how they buy. And, not that it never happens, but
right. It's an
in general,
exception.
that's not.
It's an exception, not the rule. That's right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And so I just think it causes, I don't know how many times like you end up just fighting with sales or like, but we really did this. And you look in the data and they may have, right? Because whatever model you do, it's made up. It's a little
yeah,
finger in the wind of where are we going to set it.
yeah,
Um, so I do. I like moving away from that. You're not marketing's not sourcing it. Maybe you have sales and SDR source. Like I could see value in that to see kind of which of those orgs is bringing it in. But when marketing comes along, I like to see that they are influencing it.
yeah. So you don't like, if you found less of that infighting when you use marketing attributed?
Yes.
Yeah, really
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, if we can, anytime you say marketing source something, I feel like sales gets a little kind of
Mm,
defensive or they create the pipeline, right? Like that's
yeah,
their job. That's what they do. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I mean, part of why I have shied away from it, I mean, not to get too far down another rabbit hole, like I've kind of gone, I mean, I think there's flaws in either one of those, if that's the only things you're looking at. I've had more
mhm.
luck with going at it with a different tack, which is less about pure numbers and more about story, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, looking at um, like recently won deals that are hopefully representative, like of of a bigger pattern, and looking at across that buyer's journey, if you will, like what were all the different touch points that maybe had an
yeah,
influence, and the timing of them and things like that, and telling that story rather than trying to go like, here's this complicated model, or this complicated
yeah,
way that we've said that we're going to say who sourced this deal, right? And focus more on like, what were the things that what are the things that happen when we win and when we don't win, and
yeah,
that I've found works better with the broader audience than any of those
yeah,
modeling kind of things do. Have you ever tried anything like that?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a piece. I mean, to me, and maybe I'm thinking about it differently or wrong, but that's a piece of the model. Like, because when I look at it as when we do a model, we do an attribution model, or my team does one. We have laid out every single touch point. Like
Yep.
the goal is we've got every single touch point there in our data that then we can do what we please with. And part of it is that multi-touch attribution, looking at like what all is happening on this opportunity. And I do think that's the best story to tell. It's very easy to tell one by one. I think sometimes you need a way to be able to say holistically, like what is happening.
Yeah.
And especially like for your campaign managers, like I'm putting money in ads. are they in, what's happening with them? Okay, well, we see people that are interacting with their ads. Now we see they're on these opportunities or whatever. Like we can
Right.
see that's influencing this kind
Yeah.
of pipe.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of getting at what I was talking about who sees this reporting, right? I am a big believer
Yeah,
that attribution reporting should be used certainly within marketing, but definitely with like if you've got campaign manager type roles, right? They should be,
yeah,
I mean, if I was in their shoes, I'd want to know like as soon as my campaigns were launching, right, how are they performing? And across a number of metrics, including are they driving pipeline and revenue, or at least having some
yeah,
influence on it. So, like to me, that's what I was talking about, like having the right audience. But I don't think you were wrong. Like, so you had said if you're understanding it right or not. I think we're saying kind of the same thing, right? Like, there's an
yeah,
aggregate level attribution reporting, but then if you go down to specific cases, right, it brings those numbers to life. And that, like,
yeah,
I literally, I've been in rooms where I was just doing the attribution reporting, like with sales teams, and people were not paying attention. They're
yeah,
kind of like, and then we switched to doing these stories about specific ones, and people were leaning in, and the body, like
yeah,
just the body language was different. And then over
yeah,
time, right, the conversations I was having with those teams changed too.
yeah,
So I don't think it's an either. I
yeah.
guess
No,
it's
that's
like
a
it's not
really
an
good
either
point.
or.
Yeah, yeah. It's we're doing all of it. I think with different audiences.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the reason I bring it, like, it's 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 not an easily scalable, repeatable thing, but it almost shouldn't be, right? Because you're looking at specific
yeah,
cases. But it so it requires some, you know, I'll go back to my playing defense in basketball, right? It's an effort-based thing, right? You have to put some effort in to do that and to build
yeah,
the story. But I think it pays dividends, especially outside of marketing.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
all right. We should stop right there. I like that. No. So you touched on this too, right? So there's a little bit of this that is about getting credit, which
Yeah.
I struggle with that as the right goal. But um, when you see that in these organizations where there's this sort of credit gaming credit game that's going on between marketing and sales or marketing sales BDRs, depending on where they're structured, um, like what does that tell you about those organizations in terms of what's working well, what's not working well?
Yeah, I would say, when I see this between any group, you see it a lot between sales and marketing. You can see it even within marketing. There's not alignment. Like they're not on the same team. And I think, it really shows that division when we're fighting over credit. It's part of why I like to take sourcing out of it, because I think it helps take the credit out of the equation. Because it doesn't matter. We're all on the same team, right? I mean, we all win whenever, that we get that pipeline, we get that closed one. We all lose if we don't,
Yeah.
regardless of who sources the pipeline. So I think it really can show a lot of division. I think it's very common. Like this isn't, to
Yeah.
me, this is part of the. It's like a stretch goal wherever you are, right? You're really trying to get that alignment with sales and working at it. And I even when there are sourcing models, like where it's like marketing's, kind of has goals based on how much pipeline they source, I tend to go into calls like kind of throwing that off the table. Like, yeah, pipeline's yours. We're here to help you. How can we help you? What are
Oh,
we doing to help you?
so I was curious. Can you Do you have an example you can share or a general approach to that? Because I like that, but like sometimes it's hard getting people to change their mind. Like, oh, I see job descriptions, for example, like for marketing ops roles, and it's like build attribution models, and like to me, is a like a major thing. And that's not, again, not to say that it's wrong, but like I find the same thing, right? Whether it's attribution modeling or contribution approach, there's struggles with that, getting that alignment. But
Yeah.
what you described there sounds interesting, but I don't know what that like. Kind of trying to think about like what does that look like on the ground, if you will.
Yeah. So I think what it looks like, you're kind of, when you're working with sales, you don't want to talk about sourcing. You're talking about things about like, here's everything marketing's doing in marketing. You're looking at those deals, kind of like you were talking about. We're showing them, here's an opportunity, right? Here's everything we've touched. And then hopefully if it's working like we want it to, we can start to show, like, when marketing's in the deal, when we are in the account, we're seeing, higher revenue from it. Maybe we're seeing it, be faster. It's going to close win faster. When you can start to look, some of those ABM metrics
Yep.
that we pull together, you can start to kind of do those just A/B comparisons, and make it really, really clear. And I've always found that's really helpful when you can show that. You can show the win rate to another one. It's a higher win rate
Yep.
when we are surrounding the account and we're in there with you. And regardless of whether a lead came in originally from us, it doesn't matter. Like, if you take that off the table and you just talk about what are we doing to help you with these accounts and these opportunities.
Do you find that because somebody has to take the first step towards that, do you find that you're in the kind of a marketing or marketing ops role, having to be the one
Yeah.
that takes that first step?
Yes. I've found it, but a lot of times I'm the one that's kind of helping to drive that. So it's, there can be organizations where sales is driving that as well, I'm sure. But
Sure. Yeah. I just, that's my experience too, is that, like, maybe not quite aligned with what you were talking about in general, but like, I think part of this, in quotes, lack of alignment between marketing and sales is because they speak different languages a lot of cases.
Mhm.
And so I know I find myself, like, part of this is I worked in sales for a brief period of my career, right? So I appreciate the challenges and nuances of that and what they're expected to deliver on, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And, I try to bring that to the conversation. And where I can, right? If they're coming and they're asking for something, or if we're going to them to ask for something, right? Some update to Salesforce or the CRM, whatever, right? Then I'm thinking about it from their perspective and showing that, right? And so working with,
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the examples I have is like a company I was at where I inherited some already stuff in flight that was changing, impacting the sales organization. The top level sales leadership was aligned. But what I found, the problem was, it was like the next level down, right? That's not, like, it hadn't
Yeah.
really been embedded there. And so when I started to look at making changes from what was originally the original strategy that I inherited, I specifically asked for what I call lieutenants, right? The people who are kind of closer to the impact, and building
Mhm.
relationships with them as well, right? And it took a little bit of time
Yeah.
to do that. Um, and sometimes it meant doing something kind of to help them, right? Something
Yeah.
small to, like, show that I was trying to listen and help, so that when I went back to them, I could, I built some credibility.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I think that's really important. I know I was actually telling some people on my team recently. Sellers are our customer, and I know this isn't, marketers don't like to hear it, but at the end of the day, they're kind of our most important customer. Everything we do has to work for them, and it has to drive revenue, and they're the ones that are putting revenue
Yeah.
on the books. So, like, we really have to take them into account. Not that we don't focus. We're marketing ops. We're certainly supporting marketing. I'm not saying we don't, but we've got to make sure we're aligned with the sellers, we're taking them into account, and we're communicating with them
Yeah.
in some way. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm laughing. Well, I have two reactions to your thing. Like, one is, like, I hate the idea of internal customers, but, like, I'll let that go.
yeah.
I just, and part of this because of this other part, which is, I've talked about this probably multiple times on the podcast, and I know I've talked to other people about. There's this book I got years and years ago called "How to Be a Marketing Superstar," which is a silly name. And for
Hmm.
those who remember Who Moved My Cheese, it's the kind of that style book. But there was one that said, "This is customer money," right? Everybody's basically, it was like everybody's paycheck should say, "This is customer money." And I think if we lose,
Yeah.
like, in what we're doing, no matter what role you're in an organization, right? Because you kind of made it like, if we don't hit our revenue numbers, like, impacts everybody.
Yeah.
So, and we need salespeople to do that
We do.
final mile. It doesn't matter how much we can do ahead
Yeah.
of time. Like, if that doesn't happen,
They
then,
have. Yeah.
so enabling them is huge. I would say the other flip side, which this is where I think AI, I know people are doing this, but I haven't had a chance to do it, is, you know, uh, using technology and AI, like recordings of sales calls, to feed back into product marketing and sales enablement teams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how should we be talking about our products and services to the market? I think it's too often it gets siloed, right? And the content that's
Yeah.
published is not really useful. It doesn't really resonate with the
Yeah.
market. Sales teams don't use it, right? We all get frustrated.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
now we can take advantage of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No, that's a really good use case.
yeah, tell me when you're using it. Um, okay, so you hinted at this too, and maybe we could like, take this a little bit on another level of detail later from where we were, but so one of the things about measurement, there's lots of different metrics in marketing, lots of data. Um,
Mhm.
one of the things that I've talked about before, I would like to get your thoughts on is matching the type of metric and the level of it to the audience who's going to be receiving it, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about like to me attribution reporting, try to do that to say like a CFO or even the other senior leadership is probably not going to go over really well because it's complicated. But like I'm sure there are exceptions. But what do you think? How do you think about the right metrics or measurements or reporting to do for different types of audiences within an organization?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you've got to do that, and you have different views, and I think you get, your executives. I mean, just simply, they're just going to be really higher level. Like you're going to be focused on revenue. You're going to be focused on overall revenue. Maybe you have a percent that's marketing influence. Maybe a lot of times you do have sourced, like this is the
Yeah,
source pipeline. You've got win rates, closed one. Maybe you're comparing if marketing touched or not, but you're still super high level looking at those revenue metrics. And then on the exact opposite spectrum, say you're a marketing manager, I mean, that's where you've got kind of some of what we think of as vanity metrics, but you got clicks, you got opens, you got views, click to open, all of that, cost per click, all of that kind of stuff that we don't want to show to the executives, even though
yeah,
sometimes people do. We don't want to do that. We don't want to get too bound up into them because a lot of times, like I use emails all the time, a lot of those metrics aren't real valid, right? Every server opens or lots of servers open emails, lots of them click them, does not mean someone interacted. But directionally, when you're comparing all your emails, it's really good data for your marketing manager to say, hey, what content is resonating with people? Where should I pivot? And things like that.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
so I would say that, yeah, like you've got those very granular dashboards to something much, much more high level.
yeah. I mean, I've started to shy away from talking about vanity metrics because I think they're just metrics too.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I think you're right. The how you use them is more of what it is. But I also think marketers and like campaign managers, if you have those, like I think it's really valuable to them, especially early in the early stages of a campaign, right? You like those are the
yeah,
number like signals that are going to tell you whether or not something's landing and working, right?
that's right.
Yeah, are
Yeah,
people opening your emails? Are they reading them? Are they clicking through? Are they
yes,
registering for your webinar or whatever it is, right? And if you're not
yeah,
paying attention to that and you don't know what to expect from that, then you've got a different problem. But it doesn't mean you
you do.
throw out the idea of vanity metrics because I think they're early indicators of longer term
Yeah,
success.
yeah, 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 you definitely need them.
Yeah. So I mean that's one thing I would like any and you said dashboards. Like the other part of this, like I have run into places where people I get a marketing leader is like, we need dashboards. We need a dashboard. And I always sort of I just sort of like do not like recoil, I guess, like to that kind of request because I
Hmm.
think I understand the goal of having a kind of a comprehensive view into what's happening within an organization or whatever. But I think starting with the idea of a dashboard might be okay, but I think doing it a little bit at a time is a better approach
Oh
if you,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. I definitely can see that. I do like dashboard. I like things being always on or as always on as your data allows, whatever your
sure,
refresh rate is. Where executives can go look and see, and your marketers can be able to just log in and see how things are doing. But I also don't think we should get. I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier with perfection. Like you don't have to wait till you have all the answers. You don't have to wait till you
Right.
have the full strategy of everything you want to see. Like we need to be able to kind of move forward and get things out there. And you can always change it. Like if it
Yes.
doesn't work, change it.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I think that's a lot of people put a lot of effort into. Well, I mean, this is kind of gets into like a more of an operational piece, but I run into lots of places where there's call it I'll be nice, heavy review and approval processes.
yeah.
In some cases, way too much and unclear who gets input and feedback rights and who gets change rights. I mean, that's like there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
separate on it. But I think what I coach a lot of teams I've worked with over the past is like if you're going to have a review and approval process, be smart about where you're heavier and where you're lighter, because I don't think you have to treat everything the same, right? And I think
Yeah.
the example would be email, right? Once an email's gone, it's gone. So probably put a little more review on that to a degree. Um, but if it's content on your website, right, you should be able to change that within
Yeah.
minutes, right? So
Yes.
doesn't mean you don't have any care for it, right? You should have high standards, but like it doesn't have to be quote perfect, right? It can be, and
That's
you can
right.
change it. And you should
Yeah.
be
We can get it out.
able. So have you run into that before where there's like kind of overwhelming review and approvals and unclear
Oh yeah.
roles? How have
Yes,
you worked through
for sure.
either overcoming that or getting it to change?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you have to show what the roadblocks are, I think. And I'll use email as an example because I think it's one a lot of people run into, and I've seen it before too. You've got everyone has a say in it, right? Everyone's, gets to read it and approve it, and they get to read it and approve it multiple times.
Yes.
And every time someone new looks at it, they're going to maybe have a way they want to say it differently. And even certain people, every time, I mean, I can do it. Every time I read it, I might want to tweak something a little bit.
Yes.
And so you have to you show kind of the delays this is causing, by every time it goes back and what it's doing to the team. Because I think a lot of people think, well, what's the big deal? It's just like we're just changing a sentence. It takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds, but my team's having to touch it again. We don't sit around and just wait for your change, right? We have all this in queue and start to show the impacts it has every time we have to touch it. And then lay it out to like you have two chances. Maybe that's what I like to set. You get two reviews. You get an initial review, and then you get a final review. And then you don't get to look at it again unless something is legally or technically wrong.
Yeah.
It's going out.
Yeah.
And we get sign off too. Like I think too, when you have a sign off, and I have found change is always hard at first. People push back, but after you do it a couple of times, everyone's comfortable, and they're happier. And same thing on the web. I've had that too, like where you can't get a web page out
Oh my
because
gosh.
we just are just iterating it, and it's like, can we just get some? We have nothing. We need this content up there. When is it 80%? When is it good enough? And then we can iterate on it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, well, and that applies, I think, to a lot of the things we do in marketing ops, right? This is an obvious one where it's sort of public facing stuff, but also things like, um, do lead scoring model. Like
Yeah,
like one of the things I've had to really get past with people is like, hey, this is not your one and only chance to change lead scoring. Like, if we're
that's
doing
right.
this right, we're going to try to get it as where we feel comfortable with it, but we're going to keep an eye on it. Right? And if something changes, we're
Yes.
going to change the model, and
Yeah.
that's okay and to be expected. And we should be doing that together. And so I think a lot of people have been trained that it's like that's their one and only time to do a piece of content or a change in a process. And I think that's the mistake I think a lot of teams get into.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think a lot of marketing ops people tend to go that way, right? They become rigid in
Yeah.
how they approach things, and I think that's a mistake that they need to when they do that.
Yeah. We can that's part of where we overcomplicate it too, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, actually I just had this conversation about lead scoring, and I just had this conversation too about a campaign hierarchy. It's like we are going to monitor this and we can change it and build things in a way you can change them.
Yeah.
Your lead scoring model, hopefully you build it in a way that you can adjust scores, you can add and take, add things and take them away. That's what we should be doing as ops. Campaign hierarchy, that's another thing. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. That's overwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
let's put it together, then let's see how it's really going to flow through
Yeah.
to our reporting, and then change it.
Yeah.
So
Totally agree. Um, so I kind of circle back to our kind of where we started a little bit and this whole idea of the credit game because it's really still sort of been bothering me. So, um, how, you and I have both been in leadership roles, and then maybe it makes it a little bit easier. And we've been, you know, for those people who are listening or watching who maybe are a small team or a team of one or have particularly challenging stakeholders in the organization, like how how would you coach them on how to approach this conversation to start to get past the credit game and all that?
I think, I mean, I would coach them that they need to start speaking up. I think a lot of times, especially in ops, marketing ops, we stay really quiet because we don't feel like our voice, should be heard, or maybe we don't feel like we're right or wondering. And I think you should always be speaking up with what you see and bring data behind it to show. And try to, I think it's always helpful to pivot the conversation to what matters, right? Even if it's not as good of a light for marketing. At the end of the day, we need to make sure we're always looking at truth. And something I look at a lot, and I've seen it
Mm,
happen in a lot of orgs. And it's, when we're talking about sourcing, marketing, sourcing, all this, we're doing fantastic, right? Oh, but our closed won rates are abysmal and we're not bringing the revenue. Well,
right,
what's happening here? Are we just really the best thing that's ever been there, and your sales team is just the worst sales team in the world?
right.
Probably not, right? What, like, we need to like step back and look at different metrics, and that's a place where sourcing, doesn't really mean anything. But like, what are we sending over? Is it quality?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? And I think a lot of I I think that's a good way sometimes to start to pivot the sourcing question, because I think sometimes you'll see that when you're having that conversation. And it helps even if you're having to say, maybe what we're doing in marketing isn't as great as we've been reporting. We still need to talk about that, right? So we can
Yes.
do better, and we're
Yeah.
looking at the right things,
Kind of owning it.
and being honest about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Like, I think, I mean, I've walked through this with a few orgs. There's no one's ever lost their job at the end of the, because like it's kind of came to light, maybe what we're doing isn't the best thing, right?
Yeah.
People pivot, they start focusing on what matters, and the teams grow and they do better. So I think it just, people get a little scared.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, my first thought when you said that is that like typically it's not one or the other, right? These things are complicated,
Right.
especially the bigger the org and the more complicated the product and the sales cycle and all that, right? There's lots of factors that go into it. So pointing fingers at one thing is gonna probably not really be the case, like the
No,
solution.
no,
Um,
it never is.
yeah, and I think the other thought I had was kind of goes back to something we talked about a little bit is like reaching across, like putting out the olive branch to some degree. But I think I would go a
Hmm.
step further, like start today, if you haven't already done it, with getting to know your counterparts and what it is that
Oh
they're doing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Go hang out with them for a day. If you can go sit on sales calls, right? That'd be huge. Like I think that would be eye opening for people who've never done it.
yeah,
Um, and really like go in there with the idea that you want to learn, right? To your like that's
yeah,
because I think
yeah,
then when it gets to those tough conversations, you've got a little bit of relationship you can build on. Um,
yeah,
because I think like the risk I think people who are listening would run into with what you said is that you speak up, totally agree, but how you speak up matters,
that's true.
right?
Yes.
And if you haven't built some credibility, and say that maybe that's not your strong suit is communicating difficult things, which is very common,
Yeah,
then um, like if you've got some credibility and you built up some trust, you can get past that a lot easier.
yeah, yeah. No, that's I think a really good point, and we should be working to build those bridges, with our peers on the other side, within marketing, but within sales as well.
Agree. Yeah, all the way
It's
across.
so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a simple, like for me, things as simple as going to see what it's like for a salesperson to go update an opportunity in Salesforce or whatever CRM.
Hmm.
Like if you've not seen like what are the steps that go into that and what they're required to do, and if you're in a kind of an organization that has maybe you subscribe to one of the sales methodologies that requires you to meet certain hurdles, right?
Yeah.
To move something from one stage to another, right? It's it's not it, it's not hard, but it's not trivial either, right? And it's cumbersome, and
Yeah.
it's probably, unless you're into like a high volume thing, it's not something they're probably doing every day. So
Yeah.
then when we go and give them a hard time about not doing that, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. We don't understand.
yeah. But and then you can have the conversations. And by the way, changing an email 5 different times for 5 different people, right? This is why it's not
Hmm.
hard, but it's in the aggregate, right? It starts to become a
It's
problem,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, so like I know you kind of recently started working with a client, like but you've also probably gone into other organizations.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you look for, or things where like signs that there's some of that complexity has crept into the organization, and where that you need to go try to simplify some of that?
Yeah. I mean, I look at some of the things I look at what are people reporting on, what are people like talking about, like, and see if there's alignment. I think that's a big one. I think, at a high level, if you see marketing's coming to the table with these numbers and sales is coming to the table with these numbers, which happens, that's a huge red flag that there is some missing alignment.
Yeah.
And even within marketing teams, you'll start, especially larger orgs, you'll see where like different groups are kind of reporting things differently and talking about things differently. So when I come in and I start talking to people, that's kind of some of the things I'm looking for. Like, what, like, are we all on the same team here, really?
Yeah.
Marching, in the same band, or are we really looking at these things differently? So that's probably some of my first indicators. Like,
Mm.
what are the metrics and the things you're talking about?
Have you, I know like one of the things that I've noticed, and this is probably especially true in large organizations, is um, the team that I see get squeezed a lot is like a creative team. Like, like getting them to understand
Yeah.
like what's their day to day like, in terms, especially within the marketing org. I mean, that to me,
Yeah.
like they tend to get squeezed from all sides, right?
Yes. Yes. And a lot of, I mean, I see it. I don't know if this is everywhere, but I've always seen it more than marketing. You've
Yeah.
got like everyone's kind of
Yeah.
reaching out to them, like all over. You got accounting asking them for things,
Right.
like they just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can get really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times where I've put in place like project management systems for marketing teams, the team that's usually the one driving it and really asking for it is the creative team, because they're
Yeah.
fielding so many random requests, and they don't
Yes.
always know how their bit fits into the bigger picture of something. And so,
Yes.
but the reason
Yeah.
I'm saying that is like that's also like that when I think about those process things that are getting in the way of being able to execute quickly and consistently and confidently, because they're tied into so many things, that's usually where I find like I'll hear about those first. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually thought about it till just now. So you're getting it real time from me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of stuff too, like your creative team and ops. Like I see this with the operations teams. We can start to kind of call out because a lot of times we're the ones that see the misalignment because we see
Yeah.
everything kind of coming at us, and we can be like, "Oh, wait, everyone's trying to do different things to the same audience," or you know, things like that. And so that's hopefully, and that's where I really want. I see sometimes that marketing operations professionals don't speak up, and they need to, like, you're the
Yeah.
one that sees it, you're kind of that linchpin in all of it. Start to flag. People may not listen, right, but
Right.
at least you're starting to voice it, and we can start having those conversations.
Yeah. I think if you can do that, and if you do it in a way that is you're thinking like that it's, I was gonna say obvious, that's maybe too strong, but like it's obvious where you have the best interests of the
Yes.
organization overall and customers, then I think
Yes.
you're gonna get heard more. So
Yeah.
yeah, pointing it out and making suggestions of how things could be simplified, going to go back to the
Yes.
original thing. Like I think you where you stand. Like I'm a big believer in um, simple. The simpler we can make things, whether it's process, technology combinations, things like that, that can accommodate the take the 80/20 rule, right?
Hmm.
And enables us to move and pivot quickly. Like I would take that over something that encapsulates all, 100 billion different variations of something we might have to deal
Yes.
with every time. And then
Yeah, 100%.
and then trust people to make informed and good decisions along the way, right?
Yeah.
Where there are exceptions.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you've got systems and processes built for all the exceptions that you've just tried to make perfect, it even if you have it perfect for a minute, it's not going to last. And
Right.
5 years down the road, you've got a mess.
Yeah.
Everyone that built it is gone. They have no idea why anything's like it. It's duct taped together. It's
Yeah.
falling apart every time you look at it, and it's really a mess to untangle.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, where if you just would have started simply, you would have had something sustainable,
Yeah.
and it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like where I lean towards is I would rather trust people to do the right thing with guardrails than to try to
Hmm.
build something that, um, well, at your point, right, will likely not for the long term eliminate the like errors or problems because it's
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
there are
it
going to
won't.
be exceptions you couldn't think of.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Um, well, I hope this helps some of our listeners out there because I think I feel like I'm a lone voice out there sometimes. So I'm glad to have somebody else who's a still maybe disagree about attribution versus contribution, but I think we both agree that they both play a role in some place, right? Some way.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just a matter of how we use
yep.
them. So Penny,
That's
lots of
right.
fun as always. So
Yes.
if folks want to hear a little more about you and what you're doing, want to go deeper on this with you, maybe what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Like I'm just gonna say
Yeah,
we're just gonna tell people that now. Like I think I've had maybe a handful of people who's not said LinkedIn.
yeah.
Some people say LinkedIn and my website or whatever, but you know.
Hmm. Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you again. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to make this work on the week after Mopspalooza
uh,
25. So
yeah,
I appreciate that to all of our listeners and audience out there. Thank you for your support. If you have ideas for topics or guests or want to be a guest, you can reach out to Naomi, Mike, or me, and we'd be happy to get the ball rolling on that. Till next time. Bye, everybody.
bye. Thank you.